Apparently nobody's found Wilbur yet, Pinto, is that correct?
Yes. No one has, but you're correct.
I'm just going to tell you then where Wilbur is. Wilbur is at Famous Dave's. So if you want to be the first person to find Wilbur at Famous Dave's in Fargo, go there. You can win the prize pack. You can be registered to be in the big drawing in June.
So ready? Go.
Go. But drive the speed limit, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Be safe.
Congressman Rick Berg in the house with us here on KFGO and KCJB. Congressman, good to see you. How are you?
Good to be here. Thanks.
Let me ask you very quickly. You're obviously not in D.C. You're obviously on recess right now. How can you guys not be there working? And it's not a partisan thing. It's why aren't you guys working in D.C.?
Well, I tell you what. One of the problems out in D.C. is people haven't gotten back to their states enough, and so one of my focus is to spend as much time as I can back in North Dakota. Our schedule is really 2 weeks out in D.C. and then 1 week back in the district. And quite frankly, things are moving pretty darn slow out in D.C. right now. It's so frustrating. Everyone's so worried about the election that things are just kind of, they've ground to a stall, and it's very, very frustrating. That's why last week we introduced a bill, the Small Business Tax Simplification Bill.
And I wanted to ask you about that, give you a chance to talk about that, because this is something bipartisan that you've worked on with, is it Representative Thompson from California?
Napa Valley.
Yep, tell us about this, because you, in your view, are trying to make things easier for small business owners and things.
I mean, the bottom line is we need to get our small businesses growing again. We need to get rid of all this uncertainty. And one of the barriers that small businesses have, of course, is taxes and getting that put together. So right now, a small business, not every small business, but most small businesses, they have to use accrual accounting. They can't use cash accounting if they're over $5 million. So what this does is it says any small business, if your gross receipts are over $5 million and up to $10 million, you can use whatever form of accounting methods you want. And this is something that you mentioned.
That actually doesn't sound that good. Any form of accounting you want?
Well, cash or accrual, Mike.
Oh, okay. I'm just saying. I
don't want to, but I mean, businesses. There's a lot of simplicity in cash accounting for businesses, and obviously, that's how many small businesses operate. At the end of the year, they close out their books. It's a cash. It's not accrual. They're not accruing those costs and income over multiple years. And so, I mean, that's really the thrust of the bill. You talk about bipartisan. It's kind of funny because not only Mike Thompson, who serves them in Ways and Means, but also the President. President Obama has said this is something that he'd like to see move forward. And so in this what's going on out in Washington, we introduced a bill last week, and we're hoping that we can get this in place so it helps small business through this next tax cycle.
It just doesn't happen much in D.C. when you say the words bipartisan, does it? I mean, it's not happening in St. Paul. We've talked a lot in this program about what's going on in St. Paul with the Minnesota legislative session. There's not much bipartisanship, at least publicly, going on there. So this is something, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that one of the frustrations out there is so many of the bills that we're passing out of the House, dozens of bills that are just sitting in the Senate and not coming up. I mean, they don't have regular order there, and I think that's one of the problems why you end up with things not being bipartisan is because there's not a process to bring the groups together, make a decision, and pass legislation.
Okay. Congressman Rick Berg, our guest on the Mike McFeely Show. Just have a few minutes left with him. I need to ask you, because I have a chance to have you sit down here. And I know that...
I can stand up, too, if you want.
No, I'd rather just have you sit. That's fine.
All right. Either way.
Your opponent, your likely opponent, you still have to go through the primary process in June, and we don't need to get into that, but your opponent in November, Heidi Heitkamp, for the U.S. Senate seat, she's hitting you hard on the Ryan budget. That's going to be a focus of her campaign, is going to be the Ryan budget, and Rick Berg supports the Ryan budget, and that it hurts farmers, it hurts folks back in North Dakota. Do you fully support the Ryan budget, and why do you fully support the Ryan budget? If you do, because there are things there about the Farm Bill and such that, to me, look scary to me for North Dakota and Minnesota.
Bottom line, Mike, I don't support everything in the budget, but we have to pass a budget. I mean, that's the rule. That's what we should be doing out there. We have to get back to regular order. And, we're spending $10 billion a day. We have $6 billion in income. We're short $4 billion a day. Of that, we're borrowing from overseas. We're borrowing half that from China. I mean, we walked through a reconciliation this last week to prevent this across-the-board cut. And, I mean, there's a lot of ways that we can balance this out. Like we do in North Dakota, you have to set your priorities. There's just absolutely no question. Otherwise, I'm really fearful of the future of our country. $15 trillion in debt, Mike, going up to $16 trillion.
When you say you're fearful for the future, tell me what you see happening then. If this keeps going down the road that you see it going down, then what's going to happen?
Well, tell me the countries that have all of their economy in debt. I mean, you can look in Europe and see what's going there. I mean, that's a big concern. We're the #1 economy. America is a strong country. We're a leader in the world. But with this amount of debt, it's just not sustainable.
But if you're going to take, in the Ryan budget, there's some things in there again about the farm bill. It weakens, in my view, the strength, the part of the strength of our country when you're talking about, because the farm economy, as you well know, we're a net exporter.
Yeah.
This is an industry that still works in the United States.
Absolutely.
Agriculture certainly is. If you weaken the farm bill to that point, aren't you hurting A, North Dakota, and B, a part of the economy that
Are you
really
talking
works?
about the farm bill, the ag budget, or the House budget? I mean, there's 3 different things that are being twisted in this whole thing. So, first of all, like I said, I don't support everything in the farm budget, or in the Ryan budget or the House budget. And in fact, if you looked at that last week, we made the reductions to ag. $33 billion were the reductions that came out of ag. Not $1 came out of agriculture, production agriculture. It came out of things, and here's what's going on out there, Mike. If someone receives $1 for heating assistance, they automatically qualify for all food stamps. What we said in Ways and Means, you know what? We'd like you to do an income tax both ways. We did not have any bipartisan support to do that. I mean, those are some of the challenges, or that was in the Ag Committee. In the Ways and Means Committee, we had a similar thing with Obamacare. I mean, right now, someone could qualify for up to $8,000 in credits. And if their income didn't justify that, their maximum they would pay is $250. And we said, let's raise that. And so there are ways, but we need a bipartisan effort to solve this. And it's easy to ignore it. It's easy to not do it. But I tell you what, for our children, for the next generation, we got to get spending under control.
Congressman Rick Berg, our guest in the Mike McFeely Show, in studio with us this afternoon, kind enough to drop by our studio, which we don't do often enough, by the way.
Sure.
And I need to throw the invite out to you because I do it to everybody who's on the show. You want to stop by sometime for an hour and take phone calls and have a discussion, you're always welcome to do that. In the studio, during my program, you're always welcome to do that. Let's talk a little bit about what else you want to see happen. As the campaign is going to be the campaign, but what do you want to see happen once you return to Washington? What's going to be your focus as you get back to DC?
Well, 2 of the big focus, certainly the Farm Bill is a big focus. Right now, it came out of the Senate.
Came out of the Senate, yep. Which was good. Do you like what came out of the Senate?
Absolutely, and I've told people I support the Senate Farm Bill. I support what's going on in the House with Lucas. Both of these things need to come together in a conference committee. That's one thing that happened this last year that hadn't happened for 3 years. We actually had a conference committee where the House and Senate kind of worked out their differences. The other big deal is a highway bill. I mean, I am so frustrated that, our last highway bill expired in 2009, and this can has just continued to been kicked down the road. And in the House, we're looking at a 5-year bill and trying to supplant that with revenue from more energy production and things that would allow us to have more dollars in infrastructure. I mean, these are critical things in North Dakota, and the problem is if you don't have a long-term plan, how does a state with a short construction short construction season deal with that? We end up duplicating a lot of planning and effort and bidding, and it just drives up the cost. And so we have to have a long-term highway plan, and I think that bill will be one of the top issues that we take up when we get back.
What separates you from your likely opponent in November most, who's going to be Heidi Heitkamp on the Democratic side? Well, what's the difference between you and Ms. Heitkamp?
Well, I mean, my focus is I'm opposed to President Obama's policies. We need to do the things that we've been doing in the House. Government's not the solution. What we need to do is encourage and empower the private sector to create jobs. That's the problem out in Washington, and I see that as a clear difference as we go into this campaign.
All right. We're just about out of time. Thank you again for
All right.
stopping by. I appreciate it.
Yep.
That's Congressman Rick Berg joining us here on the Mike McFeely Show. I need to ask you very quickly, Pinto, did we find our guy? Did somebody get the guy?